Yes, hi, my name is Melissa Whitaker. I'm the CEO and founder of Melissa Whitaker International. And so I'm just super excited to be here today. Thanks for having me on your podcast.
Absolutely. Melissa, what is your secret to a good life?
Well, it's interesting because it's kind of twofold for me. One is I love the fact that when you can tap into your zone, and that you are doing what you're called to do and your purpose. I know it kind of maybe sounds cliche sometimes because we talk about that a lot right now, but I think it's harder sometimes for people to think of like, what is that purpose? What is that passion? But when you start to tap into it and work with others that can help you to tap into that, you become alive. And when you become alive, that transfers to the people that you work with. And so they become alive and then they're loving their life more. And so I do feel like really having this great life, the secret to having this great life is number one, loving what you do, really being in the zone, helping people to do the same. Now, on the other side of that as well, I think the other secret to really having just a vibrant life, loving your life, living your life to the fullest every day is you have to find something that you personally are passionate about. For me, it's dancing. I
Hmm.
love to dance. I love, love, love to dance. So a little secret of mine that most people don't even know about is that years ago, when I was much younger in my 20s, I used to do competitive dancing for fun, kind of on the side. So I did like East Coast swing, West Coast swing, cha-cha, waltz. And there's just this like kind of sexy energy that goes with that, where you just get to be in a zone. Nothing in the world matters. You get to just dance and feel the music and let the music move you. And I feel like when you have something like that, where you can just kind of almost naturally escape just for a little while from your everyday responsibilities, and you can just do something you just love, I feel like that also feeds into your spirit. It feeds into your soul. It allows you to really feel alive, which also then that infuses into what you do.
Mm, So many questions. And by the way, I love that. I grew up doing West Coast swing, and dancing and singing, those two activities, at least according to the research that I've read, there's this interaction that happens between your left and right hemisphere by way of the corpus callosum, and
Mhm.
it allows you to tap into that space where the I think it's called the gray matter. I'm not the expert on this. My wife is, but
Sure.
it it reduces like the swelling in your brain while also increasing the circulation to your brain. And I think
Interesting. Okay.
so. If you can find a way to enter the flow state, then you are literally designing the circumstances that are necessary for your brain to increase its ability to have higher levels of executive functioning. And
Mm,
so,
wonderful.
yeah, not only does dance is just enjoyable as hell, but it's also a means of creating a better brain for yourself, a more healthy brain.
Wonderful.
And me and my wife, we have this bulletin board on our house, in our kitchen, that has a selfie that we've taken at every concert we've ever been to.
Fun, fun,
So we've
fun.
got, we've got like, and it's funny because you can tell in which of them we're having a really good time. If you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so we've seen, Red Hot Chili Peppers, and I saw Jackson Brown and Frankie Valli in the Four Seasons. We went to a local Natives concert just a few weeks ago, and it was really funny because we were sitting there specifically at local Natives, and we've seen them 3 times now,
Mm.
and each time they've released a new album. And so there we are, getting lost in it, feeling the music, just absolutely loving life. And we get a tap on the shoulder from this little lady behind us. Me and my wife are real tall. So this little girl, I don't know how she was seeing the concert. I don't think that she was able to. So anyways, she told us that, hey, I hope this is okay, but I think that you guys are so cute. And while I was trying to video the concert, I captured a couple of videos of you guys dancing together. Would it be all right if I shared those with you? And we were thrilled, as you can imagine, right? This candid moment with me and my wife, dancing to our favorite music. That, for me, that just the capture of presence, right? Because oftentimes when you go to record yourself, you're not necessarily present in that moment and
Right.
enjoying the thing that you're trying to capture. But if it's from a third party, you're able to enjoy it in a much different way. And I got to tell you, like that interaction with that person and just that alone made that particular concert one of my top 3 because we had that moment captured. And so I'm curious for you, since you've got a great perspective on life. I love where you're at. I love the flow state. If you could go back in time to an age when you are vulnerable, something happened to you, something difficult, maybe you're going through, business is going down, relationships not going well, or you're getting bullied in school when you're 6 years old, or you're trying to find your path when you're 20 years old. If you could go back in time and you could write down a piece of advice on a fortune cookie sized piece of paper and you could slip it into your younger self's pocket without you knowing, what would you write down and why? And how old are you? What's going on in your life at that time?
Oh, such a great question. But I would put on there, have bold faith and make sure you always hold on to resiliency. I would just put that on there. And I'll tell you why, because so when I was really young, it's funny because when I was 3 years old, I remember, unlike most kids, I would, or maybe similar, I don't know. I would put on my mom's high-heeled shoes and I would carry on my dad's briefcase. And I knew for some odd reason at a very young age, I wanted to be a businesswoman, right? However, as I started to navigate through my younger years, one of the things that was really hard for me is that I grew up in an environment where my mother was very loving. My father, was unfortunately, they called it kind of like a dry drunk. And that sounds horrible. I love my father. Please don't get the wrong idea. But back then he had grown up in a household where his mother was an alcoholic. And so he didn't drink. But because he grew up in that environment, there was a lot of similarities. And so what was hard for me is that as I had these big dreams, even as a young girl, I just kind of grew up in this volatile environment around me where there was a lot of yelling. There was a lot of yelling and screaming from my father's side. And my mother was more submissive, let's say, and I had mixed feelings about that. And I remember this pivotal moment when I was in 7th grade. And I was a cheerleader at that time. I had my cheerleading outfit on. I was sitting on the floor in our living room and I was just doing some homework. And my dad had come in and just started screaming at my mother, right? And the hard part was that a lot of times it had nothing to do with her. It's just that, we kind of walked on eggshells, like what kind of mood is dad in? And he came in, he was upset about something and he was just yelling at my mother. And I remember her sitting there crying and just sitting there. And Eric, this was pivotal to me because I was like, oh, heck no, not on my watch. Not today, not in the future, not ever. And I stood up and I was like, enough. I was in 7th grade. So I was probably 12 years old, right? Mm-hmm. I stood up out of nowhere and I was just like, enough. I said, first of all, I looked at my father. I said, a man should not treat his wife this way. Do you understand me? And my mom was like looking at me like, so like, don't, just leave it alone. And I looked at my mom and I said, and for God's sakes, woman, I was like, I looked over at her. I was like, I love you dearly, but stand up for yourself. Why are you sitting there just taking this from him? So it was such a vivid memory I have, to be honest with you, because I was so furious with the circumstances that I was like, I will not tolerate this anymore, which really changed, I feel like, the trajectory of my life, the trajectory of my life at that given moment, because I'm like, moving forward, I will make sure that I surround myself with people who are working towards having healthy relationships, who love each other and show kindness, who have passion, who talk through challenges that, yes, even if we're passionate individuals, we may have times where we get a little bit feisty, a little sassy, but we love each other and we're working it out and it's not going to be destructive. And I made just a declaration that day that I'm like, not on my watch. And I also felt that way for just kind of, I guess, a little bit of a women empowerment as well, I guess, where I look at that and go, women should have a voice. Women should stand up for themselves. Women should not allow certain things, whether be treated a certain way or have certain things allowed in the home. And men are better than that. I believe men are better than that. Now, I will tell you, fast forward though, not to give my, have this come across the wrong way with my dad. It was challenging growing up, but I am proud of my mom and dad because they got to a point when I was in high school where they almost got divorced, and they decided to really hunker down and fight for each other. They went to counseling for 3 years. They got help and decided they wanted to get healthy, and they wanted to talk through things and have a healthy relationship and empower us as a family to have the tools and what a healthy relationship looks like and how we can do it moving forward. And so that was such a gift, I'll be honest with you, because then here I am, like 16, 17 years old, and I now begin this gift to understand what should it look like. How can I have important conversations and ask questions and have boundaries? And so going into my 20s, unlike a lot of people who were around me, who were kind of, no offense, immature in relationships and didn't know what they were doing, I just had this mature sense of hard life, working through that, knowing what I wanted better on the other side, and knowing that I wanted to have this really bold, courageous faith that anything I put my mind to, I can accomplish. Other women can accomplish, married couples can accomplish. And so I just had this fire inside me, like, we're going to stand on this. We're going to stand for this. I'm going to stand for other couples and people and women. And so even though as my business, we help companies increase their revenue, and we do it through 4 main buckets. You do it through help with sales, training and coaching, leadership training and coaching, and then we coach environments around what? Culture. And I feel like that part comes into that so heavily because I see how toxic some companies' cultures are. And I get that fire pit in my stomach where I'm like, not on my watch. You know what I mean? And that's what makes us so different. I feel like as an organization for my company, MWI, there's a lot of sales and leadership trainers out there, culture trainers out there. The difference is we're holistic. We care about the person, each person that we're training in a class. We care about the person. We care about their family. And then, of course, we care about the company that hired us. But it's holistic because the thing is, Erica, I always tell people, if you're happier at home, you're happier at work. And if you're happier at work, you're happier at home. And I truly believe that to my core. And so if we can infuse that, where I feel like I have this more of a calling on my life, where I feel like really for me, faith is a really important part of my life. And so I really feel like just God has called me to your ministry is in the marketplace. I want you to, yes, do the things I've given you skills about: sales, leadership, culture, wellness. We added on wellness during COVID. But I felt like God was saying, it's bigger than that, Melissa. There's so many people in the marketplace corporate space that are just kind of what we would consider somewhat just defeated, feeling defeated. Maybe some people would say broken. Some people do like that word. It doesn't matter. The point is that we all have our junk, right? We all have that mess in our life we've had to work through. And frankly, there are so many people who just need to feel seen, heard, and understood. And I just feel like that makes us so critically different in what we do because we don't look at people as a number. We look at them as a person in their entirety, their goods, their bads, their struggles, their rejoicing of successes. And we come alongside them and we empower them and pull them into the greatness that we see they can be and can do when they don't even see it themselves.
How do you extract that from these employees and these leaders in these organizations? Do you have a series of personality tests that you take them through, individual interviews with each of the employees? You said it earlier that finding your purpose, finding something that you're passionate about and that you love to do has allowed you to live the good life. How are you helping these people uncover those things about them when maybe no one has ever even asked them those questions about themselves, or what they've just kind of stuck into the way that they think that they should act? How do you get people to be open with you so that you can help them make those changes?
Great question. And yes, it is so great, that you mentioned and you asked about even assessments. So one thing we really do a lot of work around is we do give people assessments in the work that we do. We've got one that is more centered around culture in general for everyone in the workplace. We have one that's specific for sales, one that's specific for management, and one that's specific for leaders. So depending on what group we're working with, they get their own personalized assessment that's very tailored to their position. And what I love about that is it helps them to have awareness. First and foremost, right? You and I both know that the most successful people in life are the people who are self-aware. We're self-aware of our strengths and our challenges. We all have them. What motivates us, what stresses us out. And the matter is that when we actually implement these assessments, and it's funny when you see the light go on in each person and they say, yeah, some things they're looking at for their report, like their results they get, and there's no right or wrong. It's just information to utilize for their benefit. And so you look at that and go, some of it, they go, yeah, that is me. And other things they go, oh, that kind of is me. And so then it's just this aha moment. But then we take that goodness, right? It's like making homemade brownies. You walk into a room and you smell the aroma of like homemade brownies. I think of that because when people get to see with their own eyes in writing truths and situations about themselves, they know some they feel seen and they feel understood and they feel like that people care enough about them to help them through understanding how they can maximize their situation based on how they're wired. And are they in the right position, right? Are they in the right seat on the right bus at the right place, right?
Yeah.
And so we really take these assessments and we help them to understand not only how they're wired, but how other people are wired. And then by understanding the dynamics of people. See, it comes back to that story I talked about when I was in 7th grade on that floor with my mom and my dad, right? Because now I get to help people and say, your hardwiring DNA is this. But you also get to have this wonderful benefit of whoever is around you in your life and the experiences you have at your jobs or your life. It starts to really still mold you into the person you can be. And you can look at that. And even though your hardwiring maybe is some things you like and some things that make you cringe, the cringy part, honestly, you can say, but I can intentionally make different decisions to respond differently, to act differently, and make an intentional decision to communicate in a way to the people around me and the people I'm working with in a way that's respectful to them, that they feel seen, heard, and understood. And look, you don't have to have everyone at work home to dinner. You don't have to be their best friends, but you want to, and you should want to have the synergy culture where you have enough respect for your colleagues that you are willing to speak to them in a respectful way. And when that happens, amazing culture in the workplace happens. And when that happens, hopefully we're diffusing the anger, the resentment, the frustration, the demeaning talk, the controlling behavior, certain things that maybe I even grew up with. It's our job to understand why it's happening. It's our job to help people be intentional about recognizing, stopping, taking different actions. And then when people come to work, they love coming to work. Right? They love coming to whatever they're doing, whether they're working from home or they're working from the workplace or whether they're coming in for a company meeting. When they get together with people who they can have fun with, who get them, that's a different feeling than feeling isolated, feeling talked down to or demeaned to, feeling like if any of us feel like we're just a number, no one cares. But when they see us, they really see us and they care enough to mold that. The magic happens, right?
If you look on my LinkedIn, you can see I've posted all of my personality assessment tests, all the ones that I've taken. And there's a whole bunch of them, right? You've got the Myers-Briggs, 16 personalities, you've got Strengths Finders, you've got Culture Index, you've got Enneagram, you've got Gene Keys, right? I've gone deep on all of these different ones. And the one that has stuck out the most to me has been the Culture Index. Have you ever taken that before?
I don't think so. No.
So the Culture Index, the difference that I found in that particular one, because there's a self-reporting bias with many of these tests. And what the Culture Index does is it gives you a list of adjectives, and you're supposed to rank your beliefs about what you should do in your life, like what's important to you. So whether it's important to be analytical, aggressive, committed, punctual, right? It's got all these adjectives, a huge list of them. And you go through and you just select the ones that are important to you, the ones that you try to emulate in your life. And then it asks you what adjectives are important to your job role, someone who does your job. And it compares those two things together. And so it measures the amount of energy units necessary to bridge the gap between your actual answers and your attitudes and beliefs. That's the key, right? Attitudes and beliefs are these adjectives about yourself, and the ones that you think are important to your role. And it allows the manager to say, oh, wow, you are using a lot of energy units to fulfill your role. And it looks like you would actually be more comfortable in a less analytical role or a more sales-oriented role. And so we use the culture index in our organization to hire and fire and to reorganize and create our org chart. And what invariably happens is the closer that the description that they get from the test is to reality, right? And a lot of these tests are getting freaking good, right? They're getting really accurate. They're getting a lot of them are having AI too, and they're like,
very good.
your Google profile and what you like on Facebook, and it's integrating all those things together. But the more accurate it is, what we found is that they start wearing it as a badge, where they go, no. One of the personalities, mine is a daredevil. That's a personality type, and based off of each attitude and belief, it gives you a little line, a little excerpt based off of that belief, and presents it to you in this document. It's really fun. But then there's like a summary personality that you have, kind of like the Myers-Briggs gives you like ENFJ is mine. And that summary, people like, you'll ask them to do something and they'll go, actually, no, I'm a daredevil. I don't like doing that. It will make me stressed and upset. That is a better thing for the philosopher to do, right? That's another personality. That would be way better for this person. And then when you approach that person, they're like, absolutely, I would love to do that, right? That's perfect for me. And so I found that, just implementing, it doesn't have to be the culture index, but that in particular for our business was revolutionary. And what's great about that company is the fact that they are run by a bunch of old guys, because what's going to happen is they're going to retire, and the next generation of culture index people are going to innovate that company and incorporate even better statistically significant explanations of different variables. They're going to expand and probably add an element of AI to that test, and it's going to become a more cohesive part of the environment. And so I would encourage anybody in the organization to at least just do something so that you can know yourself better. Yeah. Because when you know yourself better, you're going to raise your hand for things that you are that are going to be more enjoyable to you, and it's less of just checking boxes that your manager gives you, and it's and you start to lean into those roles that actually bring you purpose and help you feel like you're adding value to the organization. And so I couldn't agree more. And I'm not affiliated with the Culture Index in any way, but if anybody goes and hits them up, tell them Eric sent you.
Oh gosh.
So we're out of time. And so Melissa, where can everyone find you?
The best place to find us is on our website. So Melissa Whitaker, intl.com. And we have a lot of information on that. And we have ways that you can engage with us. We've got free resources. We've got some additional resources you can also order or download. And so definitely reach out. Is also a form on our homepage and many other pages where you can just put your email address in and say, yep, I would love to get tips and techniques and insights, and we'll make sure we put you on the list.
Melissa, thank you for coming on the show.